The one nun that was supposed to be the expert on breastfeeding could have shattered my dreams. She came in and she saw my breasts and she said, "Whoa, those nipples are like little boys." And I thought, oh boy, this isn't going to work. And she brought all the other nuns in to see my little breasts. And yeah.
You're on show.
But luckily I'm quite the stubborn person. I have strong will, and I knew this is what I was going to do.
Balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. This is episode number 57. Quite a few years ago, I met a wonderful woman at the downtown Phoenix library. There was a workshop that we were both presenting at, her on childbirth education and me on breastfeeding. Before we each gave our presentation, we chatted with each other and already began to gel then. And once we listened to each other's presentations, we definitely knew we shared the same philosophy on birth and breastfeeding. We shared business cards and we referred to each other and have been friends ever since. She has just celebrated her 51st wedding anniversary. She has 3 children and 7 grandchildren. All 3 of her kids were breastfed, her first for 7 months, her second, who is her son, for 21 months, and her third, her second daughter, for 13 months. Yes, different babies and different stories that she will share with us on the show today. Some of the other fun conversations you have to look forward to today during this interview. One is she will talk about her son Brad, who has the nickname Bear, and how he got that. When she was postpartum with her first baby, she tells a story about a nun who came into her room and told her about her small little boy nipples and how that felt for her. And also about her being a crazy rebel that years ago, before it was the norm for dads to be in the birthing room, she was encouraging mothers to do something crazy as demand that their husbands be allowed in the delivery room. Can you even imagine? Joyce Lundquist is our guest today, so let's get started. Joyce has been married to her high school sweetheart, Ray, for 50 years. She has been an RN since 1964. Joyce has 3 children who are all breastfed. She has 3 very different experiences with each baby and is going to talk more about this during her interview. Joyce and her husband Ray have 7 grandchildren. She went on to become a certified childbirth educator, and in 1970 Joyce became certified as a Lamaze instructor. She has learned quite a bit along the way, and when she moved from Indiana to Arizona, she became employed as a childbirth educator in a local hospital and taught the only natural childbirth education classes here. Joyce was a school nurse for 23 years and taught childbirth education classes in the evening. Her students loved her so much, and they asked her to begin attending some of their births, which she did. She found out she really enjoyed it, and she decided to become a doula and achieved her certification as a birth doula with DONA in 2004. She has used the knowledge and experience gained as a breastfeeding counselor to help moms get off to a good breastfeeding start at the over 100 births she has attended so far. I first met Joyce quite a few years ago when we were both asked to speak at a local library birth event. I spoke about breastfeeding and she spoke about childbirth. I am always appreciative of Joyce's love of breastfeeding and the knowledge that she shares with her clients, and particularly so when she realizes if they need more help than she can give them, and she refers them to me. She'll also talk to us about Dr. Carolyn, who has been a great influence on her career. I would love to welcome you to the All About Breastfeeding show, Joyce. Happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, and I'm honored to be here, Lori. At our house, we call you Lori Lactation.
I love hearing that. I would love for you to tell us a little bit of background about what life was like for you in the family that you grew up in.
Okay. I lived in Hammond, Indiana. I had a brother that was 2 years older. We were probably lower middle class. My dad had a jewelry store. He was a one-man shop. He repaired watches and sold jewelry. And Mom would help him occasionally, but she was home most of the time. And what I remember most about my mom is she was a wonderful cook. And my husband thanks her because he says I am too. He says I can create meals out of nothing. And I give my mom the credit for that because I watched her do the same thing. You know, that's about it. I was a cheerleader in high school. I love sports, and to this day I love sports. My husband and I are real fanatics, and March Madness is one of our favorite times, so we're enjoying it.
I think your grandkids are. I see lots of pictures of your kids in sports.
Yes, yeah, grandkids are in sports too, and we attend a lot of games. It's kind of interesting. Our oldest grandson is 21. He's in college down at the University of Arizona, and our youngest will be 2 next Saturday. So between that, we have so many wonderful family activities we get to attend. And I'll tell you, if you look at my calendar, you will see almost every day is etched with one child or another of something that we're going to do or someplace, you know, we're headed towards. So it's a busy life. It's a good life. And it keeps us out of our lazy boy chairs. So
yes.
It's all good.
It sounds like you went from all the activities as mom and dad to your children to a very quick segue to grandma and grandpa, grandchildren, and all their activities. There probably wasn't a break in there at all.
Well, there was a little, but yeah, very, very astute observation for sure. Our kids were always involved in sports. Our son played basketball, football, baseball, soccer. Our girls were cheerleaders and dancers. So we were busy then, and we're busy now, and that's the way we like it.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I know now you're an RN and perhaps retired from that?
I am retired. I still have my license, and I do, I think because I am an RN, it helps me with my doula clients. It also helps me when I work in the hospitals with my clients because I know both sides of, you know, the game that's played in the hospitals. So I get more respect, I think, from the nurses because I understand where they're coming from, and I also understand what my clients are wanting. So it seems to work out well.
Well, that really works out well for your clients because sometimes they, you're obviously used to living in both worlds, like you said.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when you were a young girl, were you planning on becoming a nurse? Is that what you thought you would be doing as an adult?
Well, I'll tell you how that happened. I had an older cousin who I just totally admired. I thought she was wonderful. I thought she was beautiful. And I was actually her flower girl. And she was a nurse. And so I always wanted to be just like my cousin Pauline. And I followed my dreams, and I did go to nursing school after high school. Many of my friends went to college, but I was dead set on being a nurse. So I went to nursing school in Chicago, Illinois Masonic Medical Center, which is right near the Cubs ballpark. We could actually see the ballpark from the operating room, and it was also where the Chicago Bears played at the time. So whenever the Bears got injured, we got to take care of them. So that was kind of an interesting, fun aspect of being a student nurse.
That's interesting. You could see the ballpark from the OR room.
Yeah. And then when my youngest went to first grade, I decided I wanted to go back to school and get a Bachelor of Arts degree in health arts. So I went back to school and did that when my kids were in school and I had a little more time.
And by the time when you moved to Arizona, how old were your kids?
Carrie turned 10 on the trip. Bear was 8, and Casey turned 5 the week after we moved here. So they were young.
Yeah, a lot of milestones. Isn't it funny that you remember that he turned 10 during the trip.
Yes. Well, I remember because we made eggs for breakfast and put a candle in the egg for her birthday.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, we had a trailer that we were pulling behind, and so we had our own breakfast in our own little kitchen.
Very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your breastfeeding life. And the first thing I want to ask you, did you ever talk to your mother about any breastfeeding experience that she had? And do you know if you were breastfed?
I know that I was breastfed. I know my brother was breastfed. It's one of the questions I wished I would have asked my mom before she passed. How long I was breastfed, I don't know that answer. But yes, she was definitely encouraging for me to breastfeed our children and was a real help when we had our kids.
So let's talk a little bit about your breastfeeding experience. And I know you have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, right?
Correct.
And I know you have different experiences with each one.
I sure do, yes.
What I would like to talk a little bit about, if you can remember, with your first baby, is there anything that you did to prepare specifically for breastfeeding, like classes, any reading you did, going to La Leche League meetings, anything of that sort?
I don't think I prepared a lot that first one. I knew that my mom would be helpful. I had a friend that was an avid breastfeeder. She had breastfed 5 children, and she's actually the one that turned me on to this particular doctor that we'll talk about later and her philosophies. And that was late in my pregnancy, so I just kind of went along with what I was planning on doing. And my first baby was actually 3 weeks early. The doctor told me that if she got much larger, I'd probably have to have a C-section. And Laura, you know I'm a short person. I'm not even quite feet. And so when I'm pregnant, I am out straight. There's just no place for it to go. It's just, I look enormous. He talked me into inducing my labor, which was, I didn't have enough background and knowledge to, question things. So
probably made sense if you look at your stature.
Absolutely. They gave you what they called buckles you put under your tongue, and they would dissolve. And that was the way they started labor way back when. So as it turned out, my large baby was 5 pounds 11 ounces. Not so large, right? And then by the time I took her home, she was only 5 pounds 1 ounce. She was a very, very lazy nurser. She probably should have baked for another 3 weeks. I don't think she was ready. There was no official help in the hospital other than the nuns, and the one nun that was supposed to be the expert on breastfeeding could have shattered my dreams. She came in and she saw my breasts and she said, "Whoa, those nipples are like little boys." And I thought, oh boy, this isn't going to work. And she brought all the other nuns in to see my little breasts. And yeah.
You're on show.
But luckily, I'm quite the stubborn person. I have strong will, and I knew this is what I was going to do. And so we nursed very successfully once I got her home, and I could have her, on my terms. And she turned out to be a pudgy little girl after a fashion. I enjoyed breastfeeding. I was a little upset when she decided she didn't want to breastfeed anymore, and she was only 7.5 months. I had never given her a bottle, but I had introduced her to a cup. Well, I think she found out that the cup was much easier than working at the breast, and she decided that she would rather have the cup. Broke my heart. But, you do what the baby is telling you, so that's how that one worked.
So what did you do at that point? Because, this is years ago, and now moms are told that their babies need to get milk for at least the first year of their life. So if she weaned from breastfeeding and you started giving her the cup, what liquid did you give her?
To be honest, I don't remember. I don't remember if we gave her formula or regular milk. I don't recall.
And you also brought up something that I have not heard before. You said that they gave you a pill called buckle.
It's a buckle. They called it a buckle that you would put under your tongue. And
do you have any idea what that was?
I wish I did. No. But I'll tell you what, it worked really fast. I went into the hospital at 7 in the morning. Doctor came in and saw me at 10 minutes to 10. He said, "Well, you're coming along, Joyce. I'll see you after lunch." Well, baby was born at 10:06. My sweet husband was working with me. We had read some Lamaze books, and we're practicing relaxation and breathing, and he's telling me to relax, and I'm trying to, but I'm telling him, I can't relax. The baby's coming. And he says, Joyce, the doctor said he'll see you after lunch. I said, I don't care what the doctor said. I'm telling you, the baby's coming. The nurses heard me, and I want to tell you the baby was coming. And so she was just lickety-split. I was in my recovery room at 10:30 on the phone with my mom, and she's reassuring me, Joyce, first babies take a long time, so don't be discouraged. And I'm going, I'm trying to interrupt her, telling her she's a grandmother, but, anyway, that's
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. That I just realized as you said that you already had your baby in your arms when she's telling you that it takes a long time.
Right, yeah. So.
Did the nurse catch your baby, or did the doctor make it back up?
The doctor hadn't left the floor, so luckily.
Oh.
Luckily.
See, you never know.
No, you sure don't. And, I tell my clients that, too. Sometimes we'll go see the doctor, and they'll say, oh, you're 2 centimeters, and they get all excited. Oh, I'm going to deliver tomorrow. Not necessarily. I have others that are 4 centimeters for 3 weeks before they deliver, so you just never know.
It could work both ways, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me, when you were breastfeeding your first baby in the very early days, I hear what you're saying, that there was a rather large weight loss initially. Mm-hmm. But were you finding, if you remember it all, were you finding that it was difficult to be stubborn and strong-willed, that with being so tired and just not sure, and any anxiety about perhaps her not gaining as well? How did that factor into the early days of breastfeeding for you with your first daughter?
I don't think I was that worried about it, because I just felt that breastfeeding was the right thing to do and it would work out. I do remember being tired. I remember in the olden days we used to have the swings that you would crank and it would swing, and then the crank would go out, and then you'd have to crank it again, and as soon as you cranked it, the baby would wake up. I remember,
because it made so much noise,
yes,
right?
I remember having that beside my bed in the morning when I felt like I just need a little more sleep. I'd put her in there and crank.
And Joyce, I'm sure you see in mom's houses now the swings, and first of all, how quiet they are.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, because I had that crank too, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to wake her up if I do this again. But the other thing is, we used to have this swing that used to go forward and back. Mm-hmm. Then they had swings that went from side to side, because babies like that a lot better. Right. And then now the ones that I see are like, I always go like, man, I want like an adult one of those. It does like an amusement park ride. It goes up, down, and around. Have you seen those?
I sure have. Yes, I've seen those. Yes.
So they're quiet and they go up, down, and around. And I'm like, oh man, I want one of those for me.
Kind of like a car ride makes the kids fall asleep. It probably does the same thing. Yeah.
Yes. So then they have music, mm-hmm, and they vibrate. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We're like old ducks here reminiscing.
I know.
Right?
I know. Why didn't they have this when our kids were young?
I know. All right, so now we get to you're calling your son Bear. Do you still call him Bear?
We do. His real name is Brad, but we call him Bear. He was Bear the first day he came home. My husband, like I said, is a big sports fan, and before we could put him in the crib, we had to take out the baseball bat, the football, the soccer ball, the hockey stick. He had everything in there for him. So, yeah, we started calling him Bear. He said someday on the front of Sports Illustrated it will say, Bear Lundquist makes All-American. He was a good athlete, but he didn't make Sports Illustrated.
Well, he made your Sports Illustrated.
He sure did, and he still does. He's a delight.
How did breastfeeding go with Bear?
Totally different. Totally different. He was an avid nurser from the get-go. He was like a champ. Totally different latch. He was bigger. Bear was 7'2". He was my biggest baby. He was 7'2", and so he had a lot more power. And this little man would nurse for hours if I allowed it, just hours and hours and hours. And I swear he would have still nursed till kindergarten and beyond, if I would have let that happen. But we had more babies coming, so, that wasn't in the cards. But he loved to nurse, and he would just go to town. He was a big, chubby little guy. By 5 weeks, you could have taken a pin and popped him. He looked that chubby. He was still a toddler when he was nursing, and I totally, totally loved that. I thought it was really sweet, very precious. He'd be playing outside, and all of a sudden, maybe stumble and cry. And, of course, Mommy's the first aid medicine. And he'd come over, pull up my shirt, take a swig or two, and then run off and play again. And I really enjoyed nursing a toddler. And my third baby, Miss Casey, She was total different nurser. She was the kind that she only nursed if she was really hungry. And sometimes if you didn't feed her, she was okay. And if you fed her, she was okay. She was just a really easygoing child. Baby. I had 2 other ones that, needed my attention, and she was just real happy-go-lucky. But she did not like to nurse for any length of time. She nursed till she was 13 months, and ironically, that was my 30th birthday. And I don't know if she thought the spigot went dry when I became that old age or what, but that was the day she stopped. It crushed my heart because I wanted to nurse a toddler. And on the other side of the coin, my husband took me to Chicago for a big date for my 30th birthday. And Casey thought I was probably too old to nurse. I got carded that night on my 30th birthday. And I thought,
really?
Yes, I thought my husband put the waiter up to that, but indeed he had not. My husband is so giantess and I'm so small, I probably look really young. As a matter of fact, we were out to dinner one time. This is before we moved. And this gentleman came up to my husband and he said, "You're handling the 4 children so beautifully." And then he looked at me. He only saw my back, while we were eating. And he didn't realize that I was the mother. Yeah, because he is so tall and I'm so small, we've had lots of interesting comments. Somebody said, "Oh, it's so nice you're taking your little girl to the movies," and, whatever.
Well, as your husband gets older, he probably actually likes that if he didn't like it in his earlier years.
Right.
So funny. Yeah, I wish my audience can see a picture of you and your husband because there is a marked difference in the height of both of you.
Absolutely. He's 6'7".
And he's big and broad,
He's
right?
a pretty big guy, yeah. And I'm kind of small. But, it's worked for 50 years, so we're good.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I'm interested with Casey in that are you saying it was literally like night and day? Like one day she was happy to nurse and on your 30th birthday it was like no more?
It was. It was very shocking to me. It was very shocking. It was very disappointing. I was really sad. And just all of a sudden none of our kids had bottles. They always went to a cup. At that point in time, she preferred the cup too. And I know for sure that she didn't need any formula or anything till she was a year old because she was 13 months when she stopped. Actually, Bear was 21 months when he stopped, but that was really me. I felt I needed a little break because I was 5 months pregnant with Casey. And so I kind of encouraged that. Like I said, I think he would have nursed till kindergarten if I would have allowed it, but I felt I needed a little break. To do it over again, now I know you can nurse, 2. But at that time, I didn't know that stuff.
Yeah. And at that time, was he doing the fun toddler nursing, like crawling all over your pregnant belly?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yes, he was. So, that was, I encouraged him to wean at that point. But that was the only one I encouraged. The girls weaned themselves.
And so when you, that day, do you remember that day? Were you even the day after your 30th birthday where you were like, "Hey, come on, let's sit down and nurse"? Did you try for a few more days and she just kept turning you away?
Indeed I did. I was not ready. I wanted to nurse a toddler again and she was not having it. So she's still...
And it's a little shocky too, right?
It is.
Just that night and day. Come on, let's nurse again.
My 30th birthday, coincidentally. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you want to know what's funny is that, and I know that you know this, that probably in those days, a 30 was it wasn't that popular to start having your first babies at 30.
Oh, no.
It was rather unusual. And this was your third, but now 30 is like a no-brainer. 35 is a no-brainer. And now we're pushing 40 for quite a fair number of moms who are having their first babies at 40.
Right. Casey was 40 when she had her first baby. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's totally different world.
Oh, I have to tell you a story. This is funny. With my first baby, we had postpartum with a unit of 4 women. Now, most everybody has it on their own. But there were 4 women in there, and this lady in the bed next to me said, "Well, how many babies do you have?" I said, "Well, this is my first." She said, "Well, how old are you?" I said, 24. She said, "What? Didn't anybody want you before now?" And I thought, oh, my gosh. She was 19, and she had 3 children.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, that was not the most nicest of comment. However, the thinking was pretty right on, though.
I guess, in her world.
Yeah. I think my mother, she had her first when she was 19, and she had 5 kids, and the 5th was born by the time she was 30. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so women started much earlier.
Oh, for sure, yes.
Taking a little break so I can share this info with you. I am really psyched to be able to share this next piece of news with you. My regular listeners are very familiar at this point with Momentum, the organization that I talk about on each show. You know the one that I say saved my life as a new mother, the organization that helped me find other mothers who were new at this whole mothering thing. They became my people. They helped me navigate that first year of motherhood and continued to mother me as I had more kids, and my need for support through their toddler years and kindergarten years and elementary school years just kept being needed. I made lifelong friends, and they were so helpful that I am doing all I can to continue to support the organization. I want Momentum to continue to thrive, and I want you, my All About Breastfeeding audience, to experience just some of what Momentum is all about. The ladies of Momentum have agreed to give my listeners a 14-day trial membership so you can see what this Mother Center thing is all about at no cost to you. Just hop on over to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast. You will see a link from Momentum. It's in blue, and you just click it on and it will bring you to the page for you to sign up for your free trial. Honestly and truly, there's absolutely no cost to you. This is just a great opportunity for you to enjoy the discussion groups and the blogs and webinars and educational pieces that are available for free for you. I will have a link to this in the show notes. And now, back to the show. Okay, so I would like for you, you know what, I wanted you to talk a little bit about the doctor who influenced you.
I would love to. This friend that I mentioned earlier that had the 5 children that was nursing that kind of turned me on to Lamaze, she went to this lady doctor called Dr. Carolyn Rollins. She was in Munster, Indiana, and I was very intrigued because this lady she was like way ahead of her time. She believed that husbands should be in the delivery room, but the hospital didn't allow it. She believed nursing mothers should nurse. Well, let me start that over.
And what year was this?
1970. Okay. She believed that all mothers could nurse with support. So she held kind of like a little HA League meeting, but at her own home, she called it Coffee Clutch. Once a month, she held a coffee clutch, and all brand new mothers from her practice came, and she would assign an experienced breastfeeding mother to that person, so they had a one-on-one rapport. And the house was just loaded with mothers and babies in the kitchen, in the living room, in the family room, just all over. And women were just being mothers, nursing babies, and helping one another. And I was really intrigued with that. So when I became pregnant with my second baby, or Bear, I switched doctors and went to her. I loved her practice. She taught classes, or had classes taught in her office by RNs, and she and I became very close, and she asked me if I would like to teach classes. So I started teaching classes when I was still pregnant with Bear, which was in the 70s. She was just like a pioneer. She knew what she wanted to see, and she found that out through a patient who had come and had told her she wanted a total natural birth, no interventions, and Dr. Rollins wasn't used to that because in those days there were lots of interventions that everybody used, episiotomies and scopolamine and all that stuff. And so this lady said, nope, I don't want any of that. And Dr. Rollins saw with her own eyes that birth could be beautiful with no interventions. So then she started researching and believing, and that's how she started having the classes taught, and I became interested in teaching. I actually became a breastfeeding counselor for her at her coffee clutches. She wanted husbands in the delivery room. Hospital would not allow it, so what she would do is she would allow the husband to stand right outside the door. Just because of rules and regulations, you couldn't put one foot in, but you could be outside the door. And with the birth of our son, I was able to yell out to my husband, "We have our Bradley." And so that was his first hand knowledge from me what the baby was. So that was, beautiful. That was a step. But when I became pregnant with our third child, the hospital still did not allow husbands in the delivery room. So Dr. Rollins referred me to another doctor at another hospital that allowed husbands in the delivery room. And that was the only time Ray got to watch our baby being born. And he got most of it on film. This was a crazy story. I went in. They had triage at that time where they shaved everything and they gave you an enema. It was called a Triple H, high, hot, and a hell of a lot. And I had this little old German gal as my nurse in triage, and she was about to give me that enema. And I said, would you please check me first? And I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, these contractions are so hard. I've already told her I'm going to use Lamaze. She doesn't believe in Lamaze. And I'm thinking, wow, they are really strong. And she checked me and she goes, oh, honey, you're 10 centimeters. You surprised me. You're just talking to me and you're just using that breathing. I said, yes, I'm planning on just using that breathing. Well, we whipped to the delivery room. Luckily, Ray had put his hospital garb on, and her head started to crown before I even got on the table, and she was born lickety-split. I made a believer out of that triage nurse. She came to visit me the day later in my recovery room, and she said, I never saw anybody do that before. You really surprised me. Maybe I'm going to start believing in Lamaze.
Isn't that I mean, I know that the women who are going to be listening to this now, there's so many parts of this conversation that's going to be so foreign to them, starting with husbands were not allowed in the delivery room. Moms now, they are told that and they read that in the books, but it's far from the life that they lead about having partners in the delivery room with them. And the other thing that's really funny is, you're talking about this baby is just about to come. And right now, we have labor, delivery, and recovery rooms. But years ago, you had to get from one bed, be put on another bed, and then brought down the whole way to a purposeful room for delivery. And mothers at this point, growing, having their babies now, really don't know from that.
Exactly. Yeah, total different story. And it's kind of nice to be able to see how far we've come. And I think I mentioned to you at one point that I kind of feel like a pioneer in some of the changes. Years back when we were teaching at Dr. Rollins' office, we kind of outgrew her office, so we started renting space in a church, and we were getting clients from other doctors. And this one large group of doctors called us together for a meeting, and they said, ladies, we are not sending any more patients to you because you will not stop telling moms to ask for husbands in the delivery room. That's not allowed. Stop saying that. Well, guess what? We did not stop saying that. We kept saying, ask your doctors to allow your husband in the delivery room. But the same very group of doctors started losing patients, which meant they lost some jingle in their pocket, and they had to change their ways. And then the whole hospital where my wonderful Dr. Rollins worked, that whole thing changed because of all of our mothers that were demanding husbands in the delivery room. So I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of a pioneer too, way back when.
You are such a rebel.
I am, huh?
I love rebels. Yeah, it's so funny. It's so far into what's now. I mean, we've come so far in many things related to birth, and other things we still have a ways to go. And there are things that kind of bounce back and forth. The pendulum swings with VBAC. It's okay, it's safe, and then it's not. But the one thing that has, thank goodness, stayed the course, that has not swung backwards, is to continue to, and I even hate using this word, but quote unquote, allow someone else to be in the delivery room with the mother.
Yeah, that's so foreign to us today. But boy, back then it was not. It was, a real fight.
Yeah, and it reminds me of when I was teaching at a hospital. I would keep getting in trouble because I was teaching at several different hospitals, and one hospital had doctors, and the other hospital had doctors and midwives. And on Monday and Thursday, I was teaching at one hospital that only had doctors, and Tuesday and Thursday, the one with doctors and midwives. And I was continually getting into trouble at the hospital that only had doctors, because part of my spiel, I would say things like, well, you might want to ask your doctor or midwife. But at the other hospital, I could only say, you might want to ask your doctor. And I was getting in trouble by my supervisor all the time, because then people in the class was saying, midwives, what is that? And then I would talk about what midwives were, and then they would go back to the doctors and they would say, I want a midwife. So kind of for the same reason you were getting in trouble, I kept getting in trouble too. But, thank goodness there was enough women who saw the beauty in natural childbirth, and they started to make demands, which forces change. And like you said, it's less money in their pocketbook. So eventually, the demands of the consumer went out.
Absolutely. And I can piggyback on that. I used to teach at a hospital, and I taught natural childbirth classes. And boy, did I get called on the carpet so many times by doctors and my supervisor. She'd say, you didn't say this, did you, Joyce? And I'd say, yes, I did. I said that.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Did you? Because this is what I would do. I would every day I would come home at night, and my husband would say, "So how'd class go?" And I would go, "Class went great, but it's going to be interesting if I still have a job next week."
Totally. I was sure that many times they were going to tell me to heave ho out of here, but
I know. I was always prepared for that.
Yes, yeah, but you teach things that are true and safe. And if it's against what a doctor's policy is, then maybe he needs to look at it. I don't know. We teach evidence-based medical. That's all we do. And yeah.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness for educators like yourself and for Dr. Rawlins. That's fabulous. And how wonderful for you to have been exposed to a physician who was willing to take a look at what was in front of her and say, I'd like to learn more about this, and not afraid to make a change. And,
I think she changed my life forever. I've always had an interest in mothers and babies ever since then. While I had a full-time job as a school nurse, that was children still. I loved it. I was there for 23 years. That was my day job. My fun job was at night, teaching childbirth classes and baby care classes. That's truly where my love has always been. At one point in my life, I was, this is funny, I was a bridal coordinator at our church. I helped people with their babies when they were born, and then I took care of those same babies as a school nurse. So sometimes it came full circle.
I was thinking that my brain, you've come full circle.
Yes, and it was
a one-stop shop.
Yes. And then the other thing was I started teaching, I've been teaching for so long, I would have the children of the mothers that took childbirth classes, now their children were taking childbirth classes from me. Boy, does that age me or what?
Oh my goodness. We can sit and think about that one for a while.
Right.
But how wonderful.
It was wonderful. Yeah, it's good.
Can you tell me, when you think about all things related to breastfeeding and your experiences and what you've learned along the way, what's one thing that you've learned about breastfeeding that you would like other mothers to know?
Breastfeeding, I think, I liken it with my clients and my students when I was teaching. It's like a new dance with a new dance partner. And you're both learning the dance, but you're not necessarily learning it at the same time. Maybe one's a step ahead of the other and you're not in sync. But eventually, it's beautiful music. It's just a beautiful bond and relationship that develops if you just give it some time. It's not necessarily the first experience that you'll say, wow, I got this. No, it takes a couple days, couple weeks, and then eventually it's just the most beautiful thing. I don't know if this is crazy to say, but to this day, I miss breastfeeding. I would love to breastfeed our children again. It was just such a special time in my life. And when you're breastfeeding your baby, remember it, think about it, cherish it, because the time goes by and one day they'll grow up. And like our kids are growing up, and even my grandbabies are growing up. My grandbaby, my teeny tiny one's going to be 2 next week.
Yeah, I so appreciate you saying that, and maybe it's just to us other birth or breastfeeding junkies that might not think it's weird, but I'm right with you. It's like I love breastfeeding and wish I could be doing it now. And the really interesting thing is that I tell moms now to take a lot of pictures.
Oh, me too,
which is
yes.
Not so hard with the cell phones, but I don't know about you, but I think I probably have less than pictures with all 3 kids, less than 10 that I could count of breastfeeding. And I breastfed each kid for very long time, I was in the thick of things, and to pull out like a heavy, big camera and start taking pictures, it was just a part of my everyday life, and I had no idea that one day it would be over and that I would long for it again, and that I would feel regret about not having had pictures of me breastfeeding.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how many I might have too. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, have someone take pictures of you or do it yourself. But that's a beautiful thought, because it is something you miss along the way. Yeah. And you don't know that you're going to miss it, but you do later on.
I had no idea. Yeah, so if you could go back and put your arms around your newly postpartum self with very first baby and whisper one thing in your ear, what words of wisdom would you tell yourself?
Well, the one thing I would do, because of experience, is to hold your baby and take in the fragrance of a newborn. There's such a beautiful fragrance that a newborn has for such a short period of time that I don't think if you're aware of it, you might miss it. That's one thing I'd like to tell my clients and my students. And I would love to smell that newborn smell again from my own babies, and just cherish looking into their eyes. And the first time they look into your eyes, oh wow, you're hooked. It's just like magic. There's nothing to even describe it. It's just the most beautiful feeling. But just cherish those moments. Just kind of like a wedding goes by so fast, and you don't have all the little moments because you didn't stop and think along the way. Birth can be the same way. So try to stop and think about, this is a magical time. This is something I'm going to experience only a few times in my entire life. So stop and smell the roses while you can.
Oh, that's said so beautifully, Joyce. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And it truly is words of wisdom from an experienced mother and grandmother and doula and childbirth educator.
All those hats.
So you've just, all those hats, yeah. But thank you. That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd love for you to take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about your doula services.
Oh, okay. Well, I enjoy working with moms in pregnancy, and I work with them throughout their labor. I go to the hospital when they go, or I go to the home wherever they're delivering when labor begins, and I stay with them until their birth is over. I like to be the one that starts them on breastfeeding. We've changed positions, as you know, Lori. We used to do, well, we still do kind of like tummy to tummy, chest to chest. Nose and the chin must touch the breast, but we used to hold babies sideways. And now we know it's better if we hold them more up and down when we're nursing. So that's still a change that's going on, I see, in the hospital. Not everybody understands that. I enjoy that. And then after the baby's born, and I take a lot of pictures. I take tons of pictures during the labor birth process, and I create a photo album, and I give that to my clients on my postpartum visit as a thank you for inviting me to share their special moment. So that's basically what my services are about. I like to attend a couple appointments with my clients, with their doctors. I think it's real important that the doctors know who I am. Some of the doctors I do a lot of births with, but I still like to go to those appointments as well. I think it just makes a better team when we're all together.
Are there births that you go to that there is no partner involved and you're it?
Yes, that happens. And then the other thing happens is once in a while you will find the partner uncomfortable with the setting, and he keeps moving out of the setting, and the wife wants him in the setting. So my job is to try to bring him back to, support her for a while. And then we notice he slips away again, and then we have to keep bringing him back.
Reeling him in.
Yeah. So I feel I'm the coach's coach, I have to help him, help her. That's my role. My role is not to replace him. I always tell moms he's much more important than I am. I'm just kind of the backup that tells him what to do to make it work.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like you're the kind of doula that you really want to be there for the mom, you want to be there for their dad, but you know that it's their birth.
Absolutely. I don't want to make it my birth. It's their birth. Not my choices, their choices. My job is to educate them. Education is so powerful. If you have education, you know what your choices are. If you don't have any education, you don't know what your choices are. And then things just happen to you rather than making choices of how you want it to happen. So that's how I feel my role is important.
Wonderfully put. If my listeners would like to get in touch with you, Joyce, how could they go about doing that?
I don't have a website. I just have an email and phone numbers. My email is doula, D-O-U-L-A, the number 4, birth, @cox.net. And I also have a home and cell number. My cell number is 602-421-7537. And my home number is area code 602-993-5289.
And I bet you get referrals from people like myself, lactation consultants, other people in the community, and from physicians and midwives, right?
I do. I have quite a few doctors that refer to me. I appreciate the ones that I feel that I work well with. I think those are the ones that refer clients to me too, because they feel that I work well with them.
And it makes their job easier. Once they recognize what a value you are, it makes their job easier.
We hope so. Yes. Lori, I'd like to talk about how you helped my daughter. My youngest daughter had her first baby at 40, planning on breastfeeding. And I want to tell you, the first couple days were not pretty. She was just having such difficulty. She would pound her leg on the floor, and she would just grit her teeth, and she said, I can't do this, this hurts. And I'm going, I'm helping her as much as I can. It's not working. So Lori to the rescue. Lactation Lori comes over, checks the baby out, checks mom out. Well, Hudson happened to be tongue-tied. And so we needed to get that fixed. Luckily, we see Dr. Agrawal, who you've had on your show before. He's a well-known doctor that well-versed in tongue tie, and he did the frenulectomy. And I want to tell you what a difference that made. Plus, Hudson had totally, I'm trying to remember the words you used, Lori, mutilated, masticated, I don't know what you said, her nipples. And we had to get those healed before she could nurse. And I remember you suggested a nipple shield and also some magical compounded cream that she put on. And once all this resolved, Casey was able to successfully nurse Hudson. No formula ever involved for a full year.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I remember when you called me, I'm like, I am thrilled to come, happy to come and meet one of your grandchildren, but why are you calling me? Why are you calling me, Joyce?
Because I could, sometimes you can help other people, but not your own children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, and when you have a baby that's tongue-tied,
yes.
It's.
Yes. So you made all the difference in the world in her success, and we thank you for that.
Well, you are very welcome. And then she went on to have another baby, right?
She did, and again successfully nursed that baby for a full year. No formulas ever. Casey, that was her goal. I'm going to nurse these kids for a year just for me, and she did. So.
And a big part of her success is, I can come in and do my thing. The other piece to it is the personal motivation and tenacity of the mom, in addition to family support. And even though I know that she was in a lot of pain at that point and her nipples had a lot of trauma, I didn't have to worry about her. I knew that she was going to be okay because I knew that she had a great support system there for her. And so you were wonderful for that.
You're very kind, but thank you. We appreciate your services. And as you know, when I have a client that is in need of help and it's beyond what I'm able to help her with, who do I call? Lori Lactation.
I love that.
Yes.
On that note, I'm going to say thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for being here and sharing your journey with your nursing career, education career, telling us about your breastfeeding stories and talking about your life as a doula. I really enjoyed hearing your story. So thank you very much, Joyce.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the faith you have in me, and I have a lot of faith in you. We've worked hand in hand together.
Birthdays.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Before I end, I have 3 topics I would like to end this show with. The first item is, I love getting email and reviews from you, my listeners. The next best thing for me to do would be able to get to talk to some of my listeners and hear your feedback about the show. What are you liking? What do you want more of? Your thoughts on what I can do to make the show better, and any additional thoughts you have. If talking to me is something you would like to do, just go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/contact. Fill out the form and just put the word feedback in the comments section, and I will send you an email so we can work out a time to chat. The second item is an offer to pregnant moms. There's no reason for you to have unanswered worries or concerns about breastfeeding. Many have said that you would have liked to have the opportunity to talk to me before your baby was born, so you could go over certain things that may have been troubling you about breastfeeding. Questions about maybe your health, medication you're taking, maybe breast surgery you had, your nipple anatomy. Perhaps you have fears or anxiety about breastfeeding and you feel it would be helpful to talk it out before your baby's born. Some mothers just have a bunch of questions that could not be answered in your regular breastfeeding class because of time or privacy. Talking through things can help you clear the way emotionally for an excellent start with breastfeeding. If you would like to Skype me, all you need to do is go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/Skype to schedule your online prenatal consult. The third and last item is a reminder about my fabulous online breastfeeding mothers group for you to join. We are meeting for 8 Wednesdays starting May 11th. There is only room for 10 moms, so if you want to join, check out allaboutbreastfeeding.biz support for details about the group, what we're doing, and the dates, and how you can get involved. Until the next show, this is Lori saying goodbye.